So why don't you spend a couple moments and give people your history? Because I always find that kind of like the Daniel Boone story or something.
It is that. I grew up on a farm in downstate Illinois. I went to a three-room grade school, had six in my class. My mother was my teacher first and second grade. Um, and I ended up graduating from a high school in 1973 that today still exists. It has 48 students in the entire high school. I don't know why it still exists, but it had 220. An example of how small towns in Southern Illinois are dying off, so to speak. But I graduated from Southern Illinois University, School of Dental Medicine in 1980, and I couldn't find a job that would guarantee me $25,000 a year. I really didn't want to start my own practice. I lacked confidence. That was a moment of awareness, and I didn't want to work on the farm, but I didn't want to move home more than that. And so those things crossed to where an office became available to rent in Effingham for $325 a month. I was able to borrow $32,000 from my parents and grandparents. Started a practice in a basement in Effingham, Illinois, in 1980, and have successfully avoided working on the farm or moving home since then. And it's been an interesting journey, no question.
You just said something that sparked an interest. You said, at the time I went out, I didn't have confidence in myself. Yeah. The man who founded, we don't build anything by ourselves. The man who founded and vision it was that Heartland is, you had to get out of not having confidence to having courage to do the things that you've done in a world that didn't. You were the first, or one of the firsts. So what changed for you?
I do think a lot of my classmates and I know a lot of my dental school instructors would be shocked at that relatively quick transformation. Not quick to, I got all this confidence, but when I started practice, it's obvious right away how much that one needed to learn and one needed to know. Some of it, like I didn't know if I really need to order the post for a post and core. Would I really be doing one of those someday, really? And it was lo and behold, obviously the first procedure I ever did. But the point is that I started working. Again, remember, I didn't want to work on the farm. I didn't realize that everybody didn't work on the farm, and to work 50 hours a week chairside was like a breeze compared to my upbringing. And so if you could be busy treating patients working 50 hours a week, why wouldn't you? What else would you possibly have to do at age 26? And then it seemed natural to spend 25 or 30 hours a week, nights and weekends, trying to figure out how to get better at what I do. I laugh, but on the farm, overtime was optional, and I'd never seen it exhibited. And so my first dental assistant, she was working side by side 50 hours a week. I wrote her a check, $3.50 an hour times 50 hours. There's your paycheck. And I didn't withhold taxes either. That's how naive I was. Now, by the time the next spring came around, I got to, make it right with her and make it right with the Social Security. But my point is, it was just ignorance. It was ignorance. And I just didn't know. And so there's so much to learn. And there was so much to learn that over the next 17 years, I worked 80 hours a week because there is so much to learn.
The thing that I find, because you hang out with other CEOs and founders and all those guys, and I do too. But I listen for what is it that gives them the power to do what they've done. I'm interested in mastery, and so what I'm seeing in terms of where you've come from and what the discipline it gave. But I think the key core value that I found in really great CEOs, those guys, is learning. You love to learn.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about dentistry because you spent a few years here.
Yeah.
So we've set a little context. We have horizontal integration, consolidation going on. And and you are probably ahead of me in this, engaged in this whole thing called vertical integration. Hospitals and insurance companies and who knows, suppliers are not going to let this alone either. So, what kind of alignment or allegiance do you see is going to unfold in this future? So those are the two basic questions that I have for the Swami over there.
There's a
See
lot
how
of
we do.
out there. Go ahead.
Well, what do you think about consolidation? Where's that going to get to? And are there going to be dominant players like the cell phone companies, and that will change? I don't.
You
How do you
know,
see this playing out?
here I'll ask you to, if you need to get me back on track. But I think this, to me, it would be a good preface to this discussion based on what I've heard for years. Is, first of all, so like there's a large percentage of dentists who would say, and why on earth would we do this? What's wrong? There's nothing wrong. Why are we doing this? And to them, if you're a dentist today and you're in solo practice and the world is your oyster and so forth, I'd say to them, congratulations, you are the winners, and it's God bless America, and I love this profession, and it's fantastic for that. And make sure we're clear. I couldn't be happier for those. And there's a lot of people in that camp. I think the preface to that is that for our discussion, there's also a reality that there's a lot of dentists who struggle. There's the challenges of the new dentist, which we may get into if we want to, challenges of mid-career dentists. There's challenges of dentists about, well, in today's environment with kids with $400,000 worth of debt, millennials that may not want to be in the same place for the next 30 years. You got $1.5 million practice and you want to get paid $1 million. Well, I don't understand why these millennials don't buy it. It's a great practice. And so they got all their things they're worried about. And so there's dentists in all different phases have a lot to worry about. And so we're going to try to narrow this down to just the dentists who realize that life isn't perfect and they have real problems, real challenges, and how do we address those? And I didn't answer your question, I guess.
Oh, you did in a particular way. You did in a particular way because this is the driving force of what you wanted to do for people.
I think that's it. I mean, in other words, I've had it said that if it were not but for Heartland, no dentist in my town would market. If it weren't for Heartland, they wouldn't be on the street corner and open 50 hours a week. And I go, I don't think that's the case. Heartland came to exist as my group practice in the 80s grew into the 90s, and year after year, new dentists coming out of school seemed to have a lot of the same, I'll call it instilled from him. My gut tells me it was instilled in them from school because they came out with a lot of the same attitudes, and beliefs that, many of them were good, but many of them were not exactly ideal for being successful and happy and pleasant in a solo practice world. And so we began to see over and over the challenges they face, things they've got to learn, things how they can improve, how they improve their practice. And so we set about that model. It used to be just a large group practice. And then it was simply restructured in a different way, and it's now called a dental support organization where we help support the office, therefore the doctor, to learn how best practices operate and solve their problems and help them become better at marketing if they're going to market, find a better location, get more new patients. We help negotiate with the insurance companies to get them a higher reimbursement. We help negotiate with labs to get the same services from the same labs at lower prices, same equipment at lower prices, same supplies at lower prices. And in the meantime, those dentists then don't have to spend that 25 hours a week that I spent for all those years learning all those things. They just need to really focus on becoming a better dentist and focus their time and energy in the office on providing better care, better service, better environment. And if that, and now I'm way off on to get another tangent, but if we at Heartland Dental can continue to do that, people will want to come work in those types of practices. And if we won't and can't, they won't. I'll let you turn it back to you for a question.
No, that was great. So much to talk about. So what you just heard, if I'm speaking to the audience, is they just heard what vision is, and they just heard what leadership is, and they just heard how it's expressed. And when they talk about leaders and passion, so you got a lot of that, and that's interesting to watch it expressed as it is. Where do you think Heartland's going to be in 10 years from now? What do you think this thing is going to? What do you think?
Well, here I think that, and maybe this back to your original question, because I had a chance to stop and think about it. So we have all this going on, serving the needs of the dentist, and there's those, remember, who don't have any problems, and life's their oyster, and they don't understand why this even has to exist, and then they tend to fuss with us, vice versa. And I think the point here is that I see what you see. I'd like to know what percentage of dentists know that major insurance carriers own dental offices today. I would love to know, but I bet you there's a large percentage of dentists in America who they're worried about what Heartland's doing, but they don't know that major name brand insurance companies own 100 dental practices with $100 million budget to do more. And they're not, and I don't know whether they're worried about that, but they may not know about it. They may not know. I saw a thing that 5,000 people a day are going to one city in Mexico for dental tourism. I don't know where people are on mid-level providers, but my point is, I'm a dentist. I'm for access to care. I'm for expanded duties in that, I didn't realize when I practiced in Illinois that dental assistants in every surrounding state could place restorations and leverage the doctor's time and skill, but it was everything under the doctor's auspices. But that mid-level providers are in the process of just kind of going straight for the goal line. And we organized dentistry, the group that life is their oyster, and us probably have a lot of common interest to maybe make sure that insurance paid a fair reimbursement versus owned the dental practice, made sure that everything was controlled by the dentist, and we could work together. And my point back to is, this is where I think the world is going forward, as you mentioned, toward all these consolidations, vertical and horizontal. But we'd be better off working with the establishment in dentistry as a dentist to ensure that it's still controlled by the dentist, which is my passion. It really is.
Okay. Well, that's a bridge to cross. And, I'm going to send you a video from Frank, and he's an Italian last name, and I can't ever say it correctly, but he's the guy who's in Columbia. I think I've got this right. No, anyway, he's an academician who's been passionate at the University of Florida about mid-level providers and what he's done and what they can do, and the output from them, the 35 procedures that they can do, the 2 years of training that it takes. I mean, you and I are thinking along the same lines. What do you think you'll need to do, or how will it need to occur that dentistry will actually move into a collaborative partnership with group practice? What do you think has to happen there?
I hope it can occur before everybody who's currently 55 and older dies off. I hope it'll happen before that. I know we're working hard. A lot of us have worked hard to try to bridge that gap, but it's a very sticky wicket. That's all I can say. And I've had direct conversations with the very highest levels, and it's very complicated. But I'll hope for that. But I'll hope that sometime that enough dialogues or even conversations like this get watched by enough people to realize that either what Heartland is or isn't trying to do, what Workman is, or that others are trying to do or not trying to do. They'll realize that, look, we're just trying to solve the problems of people coming out of school who have $400,000 in debt, who need a place to work, who need a way to learn how to become better. We're trying to solve problems, provide solutions for people who are mid-career, who are stressed out of their minds, may have just gone through divorce, may have issues, may have a young family, that they just can't afford to work. They don't want to work 35, 40, 50 hours a week. and then the senior people who might be looking to transition. My point is, I'd love for us to work together, and I'm hoping over time they realize that. I joke, but it's the truth. My alma mater tells their students every year that I personally have to approve the treatment plans of our doctors. 1,250 doctors working today, and as soon as I get into this interview, I got to do about 6,000 treatment plans because that's what they tell them that I do. And it's just so ridiculous. But my point is, there's so many ridiculous things being said that I don't think people can have an honest, informed intellectual discussion about what DSOs should be able to do and what DSOs would agree they should not be able to do. And I think if we could do all that, I think the profession would be better off. I think the dentist, who may not be in that half or what percentage that everything's wonderful for, but they're still dentists, they're still wonderful people. They may just not have had their parents pay for their dental school and changed their trajectory. They may have had a divorce or an illness that changed their trajectory. They may have had to bear children and change their trajectory. And it's not necessarily meaning that they're a lesser dentist. It just means they may not possess those entrepreneurial or financial wherewithal to get on top of the wave, so to speak. We need to help them.
Totally agree. But the growth of DSOs has been extraordinary over the last 10 years, exponential. The shrinkage of solo practice is pretty obvious, according to the ADA, 7%. So you're offering what makes a difference for people when they come out of dental school, and they can choose it or not. People are the choosers. Before we wrap up today, we need to hear how you think the future is going to unfold.
Okay.
Because, so what do you think is going to be dominant in the industry in 5 years from now?
I think DSOs are going to continue to grow. I think we'll get better. All of us will get better. And I don't see the demographic coming out of school becoming less indebted, more desirous of working 50 hours a week. And so I know a lot don't like it, but I do see 10, 20 years from today, some DSOs being like Walgreens and as ubiquitous as Walgreens. We kind of talk about that internally, that if we do our job right, we'll have as many locations that we support as Walgreens has. I'm like, well, how would that be? It's like, well, wherever there's a Walgreens, there's 10 dental offices, and we just need to be supporting one of those 10. We don't have to have 50% of the market. We just have to have 10%. And that's how I think you get to 10, 15,000 locations that you support. And I think that over time, dentists will want to work in those types of locations. I really do.
Last question, and then I'll let you go enjoy Florida and whatever you do there. So we also have I agree with you. It's a fait accompli for me. It's like that's going to happen. But then this whole vertical thing, how do you think DSOs will do integrating themselves into the system and becoming more primary care operatives?
I've learned a lot in the past year. I don't know what all I can even share on that but I'm saying there are large integrated healthcare units. Some of them might call that an insurance company, but those insurance companies already own emergency care centers. They already own surgical care centers. These are primary care centers. And if you were an insurance company and insured 100 million lives, how might it affect your risk parameters if you had some input to know that blood pressure was taken twice a year, that flu vaccines were given according to what you felt was the best way to do it, things like that. And I believe, there's just going to be things that I don't think that dentist who's doing really good and having a wonderful life, they're going to wake up someday and go, well, how did those 4 offices get there? And why did I lose a third of my patients to this other insurance company? Why did my people leave me? And it's like, well, it's very complex. And I don't pretend to know the answers. All I'm suggesting I guess, hopefully in response to your question, is that there's going to be a lot of change. that it's not going to be status quo, and that dentists ought to be advised to be on the lookout for the signals of this. And we're not a sage or a soothsayer. We're simply saying, my life's work tells me that it's different than it was 20 years ago, and it's going to be a lot different than now. And if you think, no, it's going to turn back to where it was 20 years ago, I think you're going to be way off the grid of what's probably likely to happen.
I could use you for marketing. That was perfectly said. Rick, we could spend hours together. I just so much appreciate what I love to hear is how visionary leaders speak, and because you all talk differently, but there's a theme. The themes are obvious. It's about a real intent and commitment to make a difference, and I want to thank you for that. We'll distribute this. You have full access to this. You can send it anywhere you wish. But we will send it all to our network. But I just appreciate who you are and what you've accomplished and what you're doing for the profession. No, and I appreciate being a colleague too.
You're very kind, and I appreciate that. And we, when we first met, we were very fast friends because it's been kind of lonely out here for a number of years. And,
you might say.
You might say that. And but I think that history's headed toward us, and it's up to us to continue to deliver the right things the right way to prove our vision proper versus prove our naysayers positive. And so for the benefit of the dentist, for the benefit of the profession, I hope we all can continue to get better and serve those people who seek to work in our support offices.
Okay, very good. All right. Stay out of trouble, young man.
I'll try. Thanks so much again, Mark. Take care now.
You too.
Bye-bye.